Yeah, this new Drake album? It's not good. Yes, we have a brand new surprise album from Drake, which I didn't expect Drake to come back with a new release so quickly after last year's CLB, especially since that did seem like such a big album rollout for Drizzy, and I can't imagine too much has been happening with him drama-wise since then and now that would inspire any grand displays of emotion, or diary-like verses spit over cinematic soul chops. But I suppose this new record isn't even so much about Drake as much as it's about a shift in sound, which in theory is great because I think Drake has been in severe need of a switch up since Views, as CLB saw him at so many weirdly awkward emotional lows and commercial highs that were so preposterous they were pretty much parody. But honestly, Nevermind does present Drake in a new light. Over a series of beats inspired by house and dance music, there are a lot of quarter note kicks on this record, pianos and keys that skip across the grooves, a few builds and drops, but all delivered in this vaguely moody, in your feels vibe that we expect pretty much every Drake record to fit into. This is not the sound of like some wild EDM festival or anything like that. Really more of a sad solo dance party with you DJing for yourself off your laptop speakers. Like the mix and vocals on Flights Booked, for example, are so bricked out and distorted, I can't imagine them sounding good on anything else. I get that nobody wants to hear me whine about the mixes on a Drake song, especially since a good deal of the time they are bearable, but I just have to wonder, what is the use in being the biggest rap artist on the planet with access to the best producers and sound engineers that money can buy if your stuff is still going to have the quality of a SoundCloud dance music producer who's put together his first remix? And look, doing better has been a pretty consistent problem for Drake these days, because there's really been a growing sense of complacency in his records as he handed us the mostly passionless Views, the playlisted mess that he titled More Life, the bloated Scorpion, and sure, each of these records did have their highlights, but for the most part, they did kind of feel like Drake going through the motions. And I hope that wouldn't be the case on a record where he is switching up his sound so boldly. And while in some ways, honestly, Nevermind is different, in so many other ways, it's pretty much exactly the same. Like, I think the dance beats on this project have only given Drake more of an excuse to disconnect. Disconnect emotionally, disconnect from the need to give us anything of substance lyrically, disconnect from songwriting. Like, this record is generally pretty low on lyrical details, which I guess I get because the vibe is less about what Drake is saying and more about the melody lines that his voice is hitting as he's just kind of riffing over these instrumentals. But I feel like the final product didn't need to be this one-dimensional. On songs such as Falling Back and Texts Go Green, it's pretty obvious Drake couldn't be bothered to structure these tracks in any way. He's just very limply and weakly improvising over them. And of course, across these tracks, Drake doesn't show the emotional and vocal range to make these 4 or 5 minute runtimes worth the journey with his very awkward falsettos and kind of numb mid-range. So yeah, there are cuts on this thing that feel very background, very forgettable, very wallpaper, but there are others that are downright preposterous. Like the song Currents with the squeaky bed sample. Yeah, there's like the sound of a squeaky chair, or I assume again, bed playing throughout the entire beat. Sounds absolutely goofy, absolutely trash. And the song Calling My Name, is it even a song? It's kind of like a decent intro building things up, then a random interruption, and then after that what sounds like could have been a decent piece of a longer dance cut. Granted, that final part of the song is about how a pussy is calling Drake's name. You gotta be doing some crazy shit to the pussy for it to go, Aubrey. Tie That Binds is a failed attempt at taking things in a Latin direction with what sounds like a first-year guitarist's interpretation of what flamenco guitar is, which, again, you're Drake. You could literally get anyone to play this part, and yet what we have on the record is this. Liability is just a bad, unfinished Drake song played in slow motion for 4 minutes. Like, let me be clear here and say that I have no issue with Drake switching up styles on this record. It's fine. It's cool. It could have panned out into a great LP. But if only he would actually try. If only he would actually show some effort. If only he would put something else into these songs other than just the bare minimum to get by. Now, look, across the LP, there are a few flashes in the pan. On the song Sticky, the dance beat actually varies up along the progression of the song. The grooves are tight. Drake brings some very catchy and clean flows and verses, with a lot of clever bars as well. I love the one where he talks about somebody saying he's changed, but in fact he millionsed. But yeah, it's just a really good hip-hop dance fusion. And then there's Jimmy Cooks with 21 Savage on the closer, which is a very smooth piece of southern hip-hop, a lot of sweet classic horn samples, a very dark and heavy beat switch. Drake on the front end holds his own. 21 Savage sounds great in the second half. But my compliments for this record kind of start and end there. Yeah, that's it. That's really it. The only other tracks on this thing I kind of fuck with are mostly because of the beat and production carrying, like on Massive or A Keeper, but neither of these instrumentals would I go out of my way to listen to were they not on a Drake record. Many of the other beats on this thing sound like Drake had them made on Fiverr. Yeah, that's sort of all I have to say about this record. There's really not a whole lot to it. I really think this is Drake's lowest point yet in terms of level of effort. He really put almost nothing into this record. It's one note, badly produced, weakly sung, horrendously underwritten. And yeah, a lot of the shit people have been saying about it online about just like, being the kind of music that plays over the loudspeaker at H&M. For the most part, that's really accurate. Yeah. Yeah, this Drake record is not good.